Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Thank you very much. Hello, hey there, hi there, ho there. This is RHJunior, RHJunior Reality Check, coming to you live over the internet through a system of tubes known as the inner tubes. Coming through the boob tube known as YouTube for a little bitty program I like to call Spleen Squeezins. One, two, three, four. La 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 la. Hello, everybody. Hey there, hi there. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Let's see here. Turn that down just a little. I don't know where to turn this down for best effect. Forgotten. I'm trying to put this at a particular volume, and it's kind of tricky. Okay. Look, it's a late hour. It's 1:30 in the morning on a Monday. I don't expect nobody to be listening. I don't expect nobody to tune in, but I'm doing this, just to shake the dust off, really. Just doing it to shake the dust off, because, yeah. I have been off schedule, out of schedule, unconnected, disconnected, and just not doing jack squat. And I'm trying to get the ball rolling again. Every now and then I'll do this. I'll go, okay, I need to start getting into the habit of having a schedule and a routine, and that way I'll be able to do everything. Just do everything on a regular basis. Just work, and start being predictable and reliable, and updating my pages and my comics and my stories and my fan fictions and all my other stuff that I've got going on. That's basically supposed to, like, rake in random amounts of cash. But, yeah. Music. Oh, beg your pardon. Excuse me. It never works, though. I think I'm just one of those people destined to crash and burn sometimes, really. Oh, good Lord, the news. Okay. We've got, who is it, people? Ugandans? Who is it? Hondurans. I don't know why I said Ugandans. Hondurans, who are marching north to try and invade America en masse. Nobody knows who George Soros is funding them, but they are making more than 100 miles a day. Think about that. They're supposed to be on foot, but they're making more than 100 miles distance a day. You know that somebody's paying for the gas. Sorry, it's a false flag operation by, again, George Soros. That is a man who is practically got a "please assassinate me" sign on his forehead. If the CIA still did hit lists, he would be all over it. He'd be spread all over his desk. That's how you know we don't have hit lists in America. That man's evil. He just is. He's got his start by selling the possessions of Jews who had been victimized by the Nazis. And that's been his story ever since. He victimizes entire nations. He has been responsible for more corruption and graft and just general human suffering and misery. his objective is his objective is the collapse of Western civilization. And he has been and you can tell because that's where he's been putting his money. In the millions. He threw away more money. He threw away more money on Occupy Wall Street than most people put into the grand opening of a new company. Video output low, blah, 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 blah. I swear to God. I swear, YouTube is run by people determined to provide the worst possible. It's just ridiculous. It's reaching a point of stupidity. It doesn't work. No clue on how. They don't even give you the vaguest hint on what you're supposed to arrive into the YouTube world already knowing how to do everything. It's like they expect you to be born 5 years old. Just the best you can get is a couple of FAQ files with all sorts of cryptic advice in technospeak that are really of no application. Video output low. What am I supposed to do about that? What in hell am I supposed to do on this end about that? No clue. No clue on earth. Right now, I've got 2 programs running. I've got my my OBS and my Firefox, and that's it. But somehow the interweb is choking on that and is unable to broadcast. I got a cable internet connection. I can't get a decent download upload stream, reliable stream for nothing. I guess I'm not one of the properly inducted minions of Satan that run this system, so I'm not going to get proper service. Yeah, this is one of the things these major companies do nowadays is that you know about what they did with the phones. Apple. They started introducing a new phone, and they started throttling down on the service to the older models. Slowing them down deliberately, making them less effective. That's the equivalent of a car salesman going around finding people's used car and draining, the gas tank and letting the air out of the tires. Not enough to leave them flat, just enough to make them run shoddy. It's a dirty bastard technique, and it's perfectly legal. Oh well, yeah. Okay, getting back to the Hondurans marching on America. Okay. Yeah. Homeland Security has stated that criminal and non-Central American persons are in the migrant. Oh, big frickin' surprise. Well, you think the people that were already pouring over the border were law-abiding citizens? Come on. Captain Obvious. Get your men in order. Thank you, Homeland Security. Thank you so much. Captain Obvious has saved the day. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Look, they're criminals. If they try and cross the border illegally, they're criminals already. They're, you shoot it. Most people, if you saw somebody, trust me, you saw somebody sneaking across their backyard, they'd pull out their gun and start shooting. But no, they sneak across the border. Somehow that's, tolerable. And never mind the fact that the most of them coming across the border are mules for drugs, or gang members, or criminals running from their record, or just plain out nasty. And the people coming across the border, even the ones with no police. I'm sorry, you cross the border, you've established you're a criminal. You don't respect our laws. You don't respect the somebody who kicks, somebody who sneaks into your house. Duh, they're a criminal. Yeah, Trump called it. Trump called it was the most obvious call you could have made. That wasn't exactly, I'll give Trump all the credit he said, for calling it. He's not exactly a Sherlockian deduction to figure that out. But Trump, as always, has to be given credit for for having the guts to say it in blunt and unequivocal terms. He's on, and you got some conehead mayor in the South saying, we don't need soldiers guarding the South border. Guns aren't the, soldiers with guns aren't the answer. So what do you intend to fend off these invaders with, fella? Harsh language? Maybe you're going to stand out there and slap them with your dildo? Throw a bong at them? Schmucks. Darn right we need soldiers on the border. We need more than a wall. We need a no man's zone. We need at least a 100-yard wide no man's zone to put a stop to this, because these countries, their own governments don't respect our laws, and they're out there encouraging their own people to sneak across the border. Now, I get the feeling that if they start look, when several thousand people start marching to the border, following behind the flag of the country they left, that's not refugees, that's an invasion. And I darn well guess that the leader of the free world and the commander the commander-in-chief of the military forces of the United States can send anyone he darn well pleases to deal with that. You got people say, the president can't do this, the president can't do that. Generally, if it's coming from the left, generally it's people playing at silly buggers. They think that if they quibble and diddle and fiddle faddle about non-relevant trivialities, that they can keep what they don't want from happening. They don't want Trump to show a strong hand. It's the last thing in the world they want, but they've set it up so that he has no choice but to do so. And now let's talk about the bomber. Captain Goofy Troop. How many weeks is it? How many days is it to the midterm elections? A couple of weeks to the midterm elections, and out of the blue, Some guy sends bombs to the liberal organizations. Dun dun dun. Except the bombs, they looked at them. The bombs couldn't possibly have exploded. They're duds. 9 bombs, 9 duds. Worst bomber ever. They were not shipped through the mail. They were hand-delivered. Stamps or no stamps, they're not marked. You know, they don't have that, you know, stamp on them, that, you know, expired stamp thing. I don't know. I'm a little off. Turns out this guy, they caught the guy. Their suspect is a... let me see if I remember. Okay, he was a male stripper with a steroid problem. And apparently he supposedly has a van. He supposedly has a van that is covered end to end with Trump, you know, pro-Trump stickers. Now, there is a possibility that this guy is just, you know, straight out of Laughing Academy. You know, just a mutant, you know, mutant freak. But the timing is suspicious. The fact that, you know, 9 bombs, 9 duds. Worst bomber ever. A grade schooler could do better than that. And there was a report I saw. His guy was he used to be on a bomb squad. He looked at that thing. He looked at pictures of the so-called pipe bombs. Said those things are a joke. Is just so slight, you know, they're a little more than a movie prop. About the same as a pack of red road flares taped to a big old wind-up alarm clock. Tick, 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 you know. But anyway, from what I've read, I've also read the guy's a registered Democrat. He's a registered Democrat voter. Got a couple of dumbasses. Their first comment was, they've been counting what people vote. You know, they count what party people vote. You know, and you know, try and make it. You dumbass, he's registered with the Democrat Party. You know, this is you know, the Bart Simpson defense. You didn't see me do it, can't. I didn't do it. You didn't see me do it. Can't prove nothing. That's how they think. They think that if they blow smoke, you know, nobody can accuse them of anything or do anything about it. But no, it stinks to high heaven. And as we get, they you know, this Looney Tune bomber comes out. You know, this Looney Tune bomber story comes out, and all the typical talking heads were out in the street. This is your fault, Trump. Literally, this is Trump's fault. This is Trump's fault. And then yesterday or day before yesterday, some card-carrying leftist, you know, who was on record as an anti-Trump, you know, a seething anti-Trumper, went out and shot up a Jewish synagogue, you know, and killed 11 people. And the same fatheads are out in the same empty little coconut heads are out in the street. This is your fault, Trump. This is your fault. Just look. What are we going to do about this? When are we going to do something about this? The opposition is so loony. They're out there blaming the president for bad weather. I'm not kidding you. Seriously, It's Trump's policies that have led to global warming, which is causing the hurricanes, striking this. And seriously, when you've got people that are so crazy that they're blaming the opposition for bad weather. It's a Bush conspiracy, I know it. It rained on my picnic and got my bong wet. It's just, what? Just, why are we expected to treat these like serious people? Why do we have to? Why are we not rounding around and goes, oh, yeah, you just sit there and eat your juice and cookies and just, we'll take it. Just stop listening to them and start treating them like the infantile nitwits they are. Why are we expected to tolerate them and treat them as if they were adults? They've demonstrated they're not adults. They demonstrate they can't adult. They've demonstrated that they won't adult. They hear that the president of the opposing party won, and they start screaming in the streets like a little girl who found out that she's not going to have a pretty unicorn at her birthday party. Forget talking to them. I don't want to talk to these people. I just want to smack them. Oh. Look, we are manacled to these people by circumstances. And I'm about at the point where I'm ready to hacksaw my own leg off to get away from them. It's crazy. I'm sorry, these people are saying this is how we know we're winning because they're causing so much. No, we're not winning. We don't start winning until they start retreating, and they're not retreating. They've just redoubled their efforts. Yes, we're supposed to love our neighbor. It doesn't mean that we're supposed to, if they refuse, we're not supposed to chain ourselves to them and drown with them when they finally fling themselves off a bridge. Okay? There was a point where God said, shake the dust off the shoes of your feet and get out of there. It's all of a piece, too. It's all of a piece. You talk about, let's move on, the Star Wars. You would not believe, man, you just browse YouTube. Every day there's at least a half dozen new videos about why the new Star Wars movies suck. Suck hard. Okay? I saw The Force Awakens in theaters. I was still able to go to theaters back then. I saw it in the theater. And I came away, and after all the flash and all the fireworks show was done, and I came away, and I realized it was just a strangely empty experience. There was just nothing there. There was no there. The plot line, it was just recycled again. Rebels blow up big ship. Yay! It's same story, And They didn't do anything with the characters. Their main protagonist, uh, just an empty suit. She is. Look, you sort of knew you were in for it. You knew you were in for a lot of PC crap when the first ad started running. You know, it's panning back and forth across the empty Tatooine desert, and all of a sudden, hark, a Negro! And what's his name? Colip just that black guy still in his stormtrooper uniform pops up from below the screen. Hey, and sweats on the camera for a few seconds before running off. I mean, talk about trying too hard. See, we have black people. See. It's been pointed out that could have been, this guy's story could have been such an, it could have been right in the shoes of the original trilogy, and it could have been very unique too. But missed opportunity, nothing. They did nothing with it. They turned him into the black comic relief. And that held through to the second movie too. I've seen clips of the movie. I've read the synopsis. I've seen summaries of the entire plot. An abridged version. And I have no interest in watching the second in this new trilogy because it is just. I may put my fist through a screen. I really might. But anyway, think about it. You got this guy. We're finally going to see something from the, it looks like you're finally going to see the Star Wars universe from the perspective of someone, one of the ground troops, one of the stormtroopers. And this could have been an incredible, dramatic story about a man. It is revealed he breaks the brainwashing of the First Order of the resurrected Empire. Breaks away from them, and it would have been a conflict between with himself. It would have been about him trying to break away from the control of the Empire. Rejecting his indoctrination, but at the same time, he's torn between his desire to be free of the Empire and his loyalty to the other troops. Because it's revealed in the story that the stormtroopers were basically abducted as children and raised from childhood into this life as a stormtrooper. Indoctrinated, brainwashed, and marched and dieted, but at the same time, initially he doesn't want anything to do with the rebels either, which really doesn't make any sense because at that point the rebels were the Republic. So calling them rebels just, well, never mind. It could have been following his story, and his nemesis could have been Phasma, the one in silver armor, pursuing him as a traitor, not to the Empire but to the Brotherhood of the Stormtroopers. And it could have been that would have been the conflict. It could have been an incredible story, but they fleshed that down the commode. Because they wanted to have Mary Sue, strut her stuff. And yes, she is a Mary Sue. Everybody's saying Rey is not a Mary Sue. Rey is a Mary Sue. Rey is not a Mary Sue. Okay, let's review. Rey, the female lead of the new Star Wars movies, is a Mary Sue. What is the definition of a Mary Sue? A Mary Sue, regardless of her origins, the proper definition of a Mary Sue is whether male or female, a Mary Sue is a character who is so powerful and perfect that they are unchallenged and unchanged by the events of the narrative. Rey comes walking out of the desert. She can immediately fly the Millennium Falcon. She can immediately use the Force. She can immediately pick up a lightsaber and use it better than the villain, Kylo Ren. She can use it better than him. In fact, she beats him in their first duel. Well, which is just ridiculous. And in the second movie, it gets worse. She's doing feats that took, she beats Luke Skywalker in a lightsaber duel. She levitates an entire field of boulders with a wave of her hand. She's constantly doing these miraculous, no training. She's doing what it took Darth Vader, lifetime of training. Luke Skywalker, who knows how many days or weeks or months training on a swamp planet with Yoda, followed up by however many months or years, training himself before he faces Jabba to rescue Han Solo. She's given everything effortlessly. She's better than both the heroes and the villains. And she is entirely unimpacted by all the tragedy and loss around her. So it's terrible. She's an awful Mary Sue now. And then you have in the most current movie, you have general gender studies. The purple-haired female that basically takes over when Princess Leia is put out of commission. She takes over and utterly buggers everything up. She's a terrible leader. But it just makes a hash of the story, and every bit of it. It's okay. You gotta ask yourself, why is these new Star Wars movies so bad? Keep in mind the meta. Who is making these movies and why? Okay, Kathleen Kennedy. The motivation of Kathleen Kennedy, the person, the creature, the she thing, who has suckled her way onto the Star Wars franchise. The motivation of Kathleen Kennedy and her fellow travelers is classically feminist. Her goal is to emasculate the Star Wars franchise. Castrate it. She wants to emasculate it, destroy its past, and build a new social justice warriors, feminist studies-centric franchise on top of the ashes. Hell, they were parading around, she and her fellow travelers, they were parading around in T-shirts that said, "The Force is female." Look at it. The past two movies, their character mouthpieces were gloating about how they were tearing down the past. The past needs to die, and that old, let the old die and make way for the new. I haven't seen that much enthusiasm for burning the past since the Third Reich held its bonfires for their local library. She hadn't quite gotten to the point. They're equating the dark side with toxic masculinity and the light with all wholesome feminism. Look at it. If you look at it, all the villains were male, and broad parodies of the typical feminist portrayal of men: domineering, obsessive, egotistical. Tyrannical, totalitarian, abusive towards those subordinate to them. Meanwhile, the men on the good side, on the side of the good guys, are all incompetent. You know, the few male healers were either impotently suckling away at alien breast milk and hiding away from everything on their little hole on a planet, on an island in the middle of nowhere on a planet, or were goofishly troublesome and had to be led around by the nose by the women in charge of them. You watch, they show clips of the whole second movie. All the highest commanders are female. Princess Leia, her subordinate, Princess Gender Studies, and all the commanders, all the sub-commanders, they're all female. And the black guy goes away. He goes off on a mission on his own. They send that little round-headed Asian woman to go along with him and hold his hand while he conducted his mission. And they were stereotypical, enlightened, progressive women who don't need no man. Right down to their fat little round faces and their purple freaking hair. They wanted to, their whole objective was to equate, women good, men evil. Men are all from the dark side. That was their message. You know what would be a good, you know what would be a great way to spin off and save the Star Wars franchise? You got these people who are talking about, oh, we need to make a movie about Obi-Wan. Let George Lucas come back and buy it back and make a couple of movies about Obi-Wan's dead. Okay, just how many more times are they going to dig up the old dig up the ones that died in the original trilogy and prop them up on a stick? Come on. It's obvious that I'm sorry. Princess Leia died of old age. Her actress died of old age. Harrison Ford clearly does not want to be Han Solo anymore. In fact, Harrison Ford wanted his character to die at the end of the original trilogy. Can't fault him for that. But okay, we've beaten this story to death. Okay, whiny farm boy becomes Jedi, saves the world by blowing up a giant ship. There's only so many different ways you can do the Death Star story, and they've done them all 3 times. Let's see, the original. Star Wars 4, Star Wars 6, and Star Wars 7 are all, and the prequel too. Star Wars 1 had little Anakin Skywalker blowing up the Federation, the Trade Federation's giant space station. So they've whomped the hell out of that story. Okay, they've done it. It's done, it's tired, it's old, it's over. But that still leaves you with a whole freaking galaxy, literally, that just waiting to be examined and expanded into, and whole new stories to be made. There are entire franchises worth of little subcultures in the Star Wars universe. That are just waiting to be touched on. What would be a great spin-off of the Star Wars franchise? Picture a movie that follows a band of brothers who want nothing to do with the Empire or the rebels. Let's see what's going on in the rest of the universe away from the never-ending battle between the evil empire and the good republic. Let's go see. This can't be the whole of their universe, right? So pictures. One guy suggested picture a bunch of ex-stormtroopers. They break away like the black guy in. I can't even remember his name. Colin? They broke away from the Empire, but they don't want anything to do with the rebels either. And you got, picture. There are all sorts of stories that could be told about people who live in between the cracks. Well, I'll be honest. It's very similar to what the TV show Firefly was all about. But apply some of that creative story writing to the Galactic Republic in Star Wars, and you've got a lot of ground to play with. An ex-stormtrooper who escapes the brainwashing and goes AWOL. A survivor of an apocalypse who blames both the Empire and the rebels for his family's death and the ruin of his homeworld. A Force heretic who believes in a different path that neither the Sith nor the Jedi take. A couple of droids who have broken their program and rebelled and are trying to live as free citizens and trying to avoid being enslaved again. Just all these stories that could be done. But no, they want to fly Luke Skywalker down the Star Wars trench one more time. Or they want to destroy even that much of the legacy and just wipe it out and turn it into a feminist gender studies lecture. Oh, geez. Yeah. Like I said, their goal is not to make better movies. Their goal is not to make good Star Wars movies. Their goal is to castrate the Star Wars franchise. That's that when feminists come in to take something over, that's their whole goal, is to emasculate whatever they've taken over. Not to improve it, not to be. What do they do with Ghostbusters? Same idea. The only male character in the thing, is an incompetent airhead. Their goal, their entire goal is just emasculation. They want everything male to be declared poisonous and unnatural. Now, they made a real critical error with Copernic, the man who recently got sworn to the Supreme Court. They've finally gone too far. What they didn't count on, what they never counted on, and what I would have never counted on either. I wouldn't have depended on it for anything. What they didn't expect was that a great number of women out there happened to be mothers of little boys. And these mothers looked at what the Democrat Party and what the feminists, and the mainstream media were doing to Kaepernick, and realized, oh my God, they could do this to my son. My baby boy could face this kind of railroading. And these women, started kicking up sand about it. They weren't happy with the notion that their little boy could grow up and be basically convicted without a trial. It's interesting how the female gender only, I'm going to be brutal about it. I'm going to be brutal about it. Is that women as a whole don't quite seem to come around until it is made brutally obvious to them that their noble sounding agenda is going to come around and bite them in the ass personally. How many of these thousands of women, these women that are finally getting their dander up? I'm a mother of a little boy, and I don't want this happening to my son. You couldn't give a rat's ass if it happened to somebody else's. You watched it happen over and over and over again, and only now, when it's gotten to the point where the man being sent up to the Supreme Court is being attacked. Only then do you see, holy crap, this could affect me. I'm aware as a man that this sort of thing could be used against me, technically. But I am a shut-in and a recluse, and I have absolutely no women in my life. So the likelihood of it cropping up, of some woman accusing me of abhorrent behavior, is pretty slim. But I'm aware of it happening to other men. I'm aware of it happening to men I knew and know. I've had friends that have been subjected to abuses. If they've been subjected to abuses that if it had happened to a woman, the nation would have ground to a halt. Everybody be out there wearing stupid ribbons to commemorate their trauma. But because they're men, they don't even make the newspaper. And that outrages me. That outrages me. If it happens, if horrible injustice happens, well, I don't need to be a particular gender to care. If a horrible injustice happens to somebody, I get upset about it. I find, how dare they? How could this happen? Why does nobody do anything? I get outraged about it. But it seems like that the female half of our society could care less about anything, any kind of injustice happening, so long as it doesn't directly affect them. Women in our society are taught to be self-centered and ruthless. They are taught that it is their right to get the biggest slice of everything because they're women and they're wonderful. And life springeth forth, yea, from their very womb. You don't give somebody that level of entitlement without them turning just cold-hearted and ruthless. Why am I up? Why am I up? Because I'm not asleep. Sleep schedule's been sort of shot the past week. Of course, I've never had a really good regular sleep schedule. Once I left college, once I left school, regular schooling, I never had a normal sleep cycle since. I get tired, I lie down. I'm no longer tired, I get up. I'm hungry, I eat. That kind of thing. Just trying to get back online, trying to get things rolling and shake a little of the dust off. Spend 15 minutes fiddle faddling with the settings on my computer before I figured out that the microphone on the page I was looking at was turned off. So, yeah, feeling real sharp, feeling real smart. Now, have you caught the latest chapter of Warcrafter? I really need to do something. I need to do something else and something else. If next thing I write has got to be a chapter in something else. Just to, I've still got old stories that I haven't touched in a long in ages that really could probably really use an update. But did you catch it? Are you there, Bueller? Talk to me, speak to me, say you love me. Where? We're just going to sit here staring at each other. We're each just going to sit here staring at the screen, waiting for somebody else to speak or talk or type, aren't we? I hate that. $1 trillion in communication equipment, and everybody sits at their screen staring at it, waiting for somebody else to talk. Hello, Archangel Primilcure. Please, do more than say hello. I want to know if have you been following the fan fictions, stories I wrote, the Warcrafter. I took it in kind of a dark area fairly recently. I want to keep the story from progressing too fast. But events are snowballing in the story rather quickly. Yeah, the thing of it is, it's a sort of precarious position. I'm not sure how tenable it is. Skinwalker and the other Warcrafted, that the members of the team, they are in a very precarious position. I'm not really sure how I'm really not sure how tenable it is. They are literally holding the equivalent of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, and an evil conspiracy which is behind all three of them, at arm's length by nothing more than threat of retaliation. And what I mean by that is that, okay, in the original story, Worm, the conspiracy cauldron. Now, my thinking is that cauldron has to be at most about 100 people. The whole organization as a whole. The functioning organization has to be maybe 100 people, with or maybe with about 5 or 6 people. Maybe 6 to a dozen people at the at the highest echelon, the inner circle, because kind of hard to keep. The more people you have involved in a secret or a conspiracy, the harder it is to keep. And canonically speaking, reading the original story, Dr. Mother, the Triumvirate, contested. They do not seem like the kind of people who like to have a lot of partners, so to speak. Anyway, Adrian, the protagonist, Adrian, he's also known as Bailiff or the Skinwalker. He managed to get off one hell of a lucky shot early on. The organization known as Cauldron, which is basically a secret organization which is behind all sorts of bad things in this setting. So they're doing all these horrible things in the background because supposedly because they're going to save the world from this cosmic horror. And Bayleaf got off one hell of a lucky shot. They tried to get the drop on him by opening up a portal door and basically dropping an assassin on his head. But what they didn't count on is that he had been prepared for that. And he managed to open a portal into their lair. He basically threw a teleporter through the open portal and basically unloaded a small arsenal of munitions and weapons and explosives and miniature killer robots into their laboratories, which basically tore everything to shreds, injured a lot of people, and killed one of their more important operatives. You see, because among other things, Cauldron had been manipulating the world's economies and using a supervillain by the name of the Number Man to do that. He's basically a super mathematician, and he'd been basically cooking the books for him, helping them control and manipulate the world's economies. And he took a buzzsaw blade to the face. And thus, they've kind of got their hands full. One of their most powerful agents dead. One of their most important ones traumatized. The assassin they sent through is also... the assassin they sent through to try and kill him is called Contessa. She's also... She has the most bullshit power ever. Pardon my language, but... the kind of thing that would make a 6-year-old kid go, "Oh, come on," Basically, what she has is called the path to victory. All she has to do is state a goal, and her power will give her a list of instructions, steps to take to make it happen. There are some things she can't path around. That she can't path directly, but she can path around them. If she can't. But it turns out that one of the Warcrafter's attribute is that since he, for multiple reasons, she can't detect him. Her power can't see him. He is an X Factor, a complete unknown. And her power cannot predict what he will do next. It really, flew up my nose the first time I read the story. Worm, that you had this character who literally all she had to do to win was ask her power, "How do I win?" And it would give her a list of steps to take, right down to the inch, and she would win regardless. Okay, anybody who knows anything about math, anybody who knows about math or the chaos factor, fractals, chaos theory, basically that's impossible. Because the larger or more complex something gets, the more unpredictable factors intrude. That's what they're talking about when they talk about the butterfly effect. It just got, the original author of Worm, Wildbow, has a really shall we say, hostile relationship to the basic laws of math, science, physics. He seems to have no perspective on what constitutes the ridiculous, even for a comic book. Let's put the idea is that she has a perfect model of the universe that she can use to predict anybody's actions. You can't do that. Even with a perfect model, you can't even predict the weather with 100% accuracy. Well, anyway, for the first time she meets Bayleaf. He's an X Factor. He's totally unpredictable to her. In fact, because she is so dependent on her power. She literally has had this power since she was about 5 years old. Since she was a child. And she's used it to do everything. She doesn't have to learn anything. She doesn't have to, she doesn't even have to know how to speak a language. She just asks her powers, how do I tell this person to do something? And it'll give her a series of words to say. So basically, she's not mature. She's not. She's basically a 5-year-old child in an adult's body when she's not using her power. And one of the consequences, she is oblivious. One of the natures of her power is that she is oblivious to what it is incapable of modeling. If her power can't model something, it ignores it. So basically, she's blind to it. So if you've ever seen, have you ever watched Doctor Who? What are the name of the aliens with they had there was this race of aliens that were supposedly the secret rulers of the world. And if you ever looked away from them, you forgot they were there instantly. The Silence, that was their name. Yes. Anyway, he is like the Silence to Contessa. And the first time they meet, he actually gets the best of her in a fight. Because she can't predict what blows he was going to deliver. She couldn't predict his moves. And if she even glanced away from him, she forgot he was there. And he beat the crap out of her and face planted her in a cake. Just cause. And when they threw her back, she was utterly traumatized by that. It utterly freaked her out, and she's not been functioning at full capacity since. Because she refuses to go anywhere near the city that Bayleaf lives in. Because he's not the only blank spot in the city. It turns out that some of the technology he's making, the Tinker devices, also create blank areas around them. And so to all the psychics and super geniuses and thinkers and precogs and fortune tellers and everything, that pretty much everything around Brockton Bay, the city the story is set in, is Swiss cheese. Right. Anyway, okay, he's. So I figure, I'm having to argue that, yeah, okay, they are on the back foot. They are seriously on the back foot
because in reality, though Cauldron has influence and reach all over the world, in reality, they're at most a dozen to 100 people in Cauldron itself. They've just lost their numbers man, and Contessa is having to step in and take his place because she's because she's basically been rendered too emotionally tripped up to handle field work anymore. She was their number one hit. She was their number one hit man, basically. She was the one who would go out and make things happen. But she refuses to leave base anymore because of how Bayleaf caught her off guard. And the other thing of it is, that Cauldron is in control of multiple superpowered individuals, heroes and villains. They've been doing business on the side, selling superpowers in a bottle to raise funds for their crusade, among other things. And among the superheroes they have under their control are the three most powerful superheroes on Earth: Legend, who is a flying blaster who can shoot laser beams from his hands, energy beams actually from his hands that can shoot around corners and do just about anything he sets his mind to. Eidolon, who can literally have any three powers he wants. He just has to sift through the library of powers in his mind to find the ones he wants. And Alexandria, who is basically that world's version of Superman, powers-wise. Indestructible, super fast, super intelligent, she's a thinker, and of course ridiculously insanely strong. Wildbow lists her as being able to lift over 1 million tons, which is frickin' ridiculous. Let's just say I'm going to go with the yeah right approach to that. So basically, he may have put them on the back step, he may have gotten Cauldron on the back foot, but they have at their disposal hired guns and hitmen and assassins who could literally vaporize Bayleaf in the blink of an eye. And so I've been sort of set off on why haven't they done it. Sort of a difficult question to answer in the story. And well, one of the reasons that they haven't touched him yet is because first they figure he might be useful. Then, because they were too busy cleaning up the mess in their secret extra-dimensional base. And then he thanks to his recent creation, his invention, he has become well known in the superhero community, and he has become, at the moment, too valuable to squish. Oh dear. I'm going to have to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back in a few minutes. Feel free to enjoy the music, such as it is. Be right back. Hello, hello, hello. I'm back again. Anyway, uh, what I was saying. The thing of it is that in the most recent chapter, he managed to, uh, whew. Where was I? Oh, well, just adjusting a few things. Um, uh, in the most recent chapter, basically got established that currently they're too useful for Cauldron to touch at the moment. Everybody in and their cat is giving Bayleaf accolades, pats on the back, and they're desperate to work with him. So if he just suddenly dies or disappears, things are going to get very awkward and very uncomfortable really quickly. But all the same, just a second here. Alexandria shows up and basically threatens his life. If he doesn't toe the line, she may have to come and take him out, or take him or his loved ones out, or his friends or his family, whoever they have to bring him back in line. And while she's bragging about she's basically bragging about what they can do to him, and he can't stop them. Hemlock, that's Taylor Hebert's alter ego in this story, teleports in behind her and basically puts a knife through her. She's unharmed. These particular weapons are specially made for Hemlock. They can cut through anything, but they can cut through just about anything. But they'll only pass through living tissue without harming it. If she stabs you, the area will burn with pain and then go numb and paralyzed for a while. But the blades don't draw blood. But it's enough to scare the everlasting crap out of Alexandria. And that's what I'm using as a justification for why Alexandria just doesn't reach over and twist somebody's head off. Is that on top of the fact that Adrian and his team are currently indispensable, they have managed to put the fear of God into Alexandria. Because Alexandria has had her powers since she was a teenager. And since she has had her powers, she's only been injured once in extreme circumstances. She lost an eye. But other than that, she has not been injured, and she has not felt pain at all in almost 30 years. And then she looks down, all of a sudden, she got this burning pain right through her chest, looks down and sees a dagger sticking out of it. The point of a dagger sticking out of her chest. And she realizes she's not as invincible as she thought she was. So she makes herself scarce very quickly. But the running question is just how intimidated is Cauldron and their operatives, and just how effective would that be at keeping them at arm's length? Force will intimidate. Force will intimidate the reckless and the dangerous and keep them at bay. But if you make yourself dangerous enough, if you scare them badly enough, that can actually provoke some people into attacking. All said and done, it's better to be strong and intimidating, despite that small percentage. Don't get me wrong. Trying to get through realpolitik by being friendly and inoffensive is a way to guarantee that you'll be steamrollered. But the question is, are Bayleaf and his friends, have they managed to maintain that balance? Or have they gone too far in one direction? Because Cauldron and Alexandria and they're not people used to taking no for an answer. I could stand a little feedback, a little talk, a little criticism, a little shoe throwing. Of course, what I'm saying is that the story is progressing a bit faster than I expected, because you got Adrian coming forward. He's developed one weapon which neutralizes one of the Endbringers, or at least neutralizes one of her most dangerous powers, and leaves her literally fighting blind. But he's also proposed a symposium. He has designs in plan for a weapon which will kill Endbringers. And so things are going to progress rather rapidly. And it's an interesting thing. Have you ever read Taylor Varga? Basically, it's another Worm fan fiction. It's a great. It's several hundred chapters long, so expect to be sitting down for a long, long read. Taylor Varga, Taylorvarga. Basically, Taylor gets the powers of the Varga. You'll have to look that one up. It's basically a giant space dragon dinosaur thing that bonds with her physically. And basically, the Taylor Varga story, it's screamingly funny. And it is fun as heck to read. And basically it takes things to 11 and then breaks the knob off. And one of the features of the story is that Taylor, Amy, who is Panacea, the healer, the two video game themed supervillain geeks, Uber and Leet, they all sit down and and one of the ongoing storylines is that they have sat down and they have designed a weapon which will kill an Endbringer. And it is basically a gigantic shotgun powered by an atomic bomb. And if you think that Bayleaf drives the local PRT crazy, you should read Taylor Varga, because she makes him look like an amateur. Yeah. Anyway, it's really worth a read. I definitely recommend it. You can find it on. Well, just look around. Just do a Google search. It's on Sufficient Velocity. The Sufficient Velocity forums. It's an interesting name, Sufficient Velocity. It's a reference to a joke. It's a sci-fi fandom joke. Sufficient Velocity. They're talking about it's a joke about all these verses things people do. Star Trek Enterprise versus Star Wars Death Star Destroyer. Star Destroyer. And how many X-wings would it take to defeat V'ger, or how many of this ship would it take to beat that ship? And the running joke is that they say how many would it take, and it says one at sufficient velocity. And technically, that applies to every versus thing. Superman versus Aquaman, and, My Little Pony versus the biker mice from Mars. Whatever you want to say. How many of this does it take to beat that many of that? One at sufficient velocity. And for those who don't get the joke, KE equals 1/2 MV squared. Excuse me. That's the thing. One of the big scenes in the newest Star Wars movie is where General Gender Studies stays behind and drives their cruiser. She throws it into hyperdrive and basically turns half the pursuing fleet into confetti. At which point, logic just fell over and died, That is realistically how it would probably work. The another ongoing joke in Sufficient Velocity is that any means of propulsion that is fast enough to be interesting is also fast enough to be a weapon. You know, you take something the size of a spaceship, crank it up to near light speed, and then throw it at something. Too bad for both of them. Episode 8. I don't even know what happened Solo. I haven't even looked at it. I'm like, we know, you know, we've known who's served this turd sandwich before. You know, we don't need to go back for seconds. But, well, basically, that little thing just basically destroyed the whole Star Wars franchise. All that nonsense, you know, all the other space battles just rendered pointless. Because they could just take an X-wing, stick a droid into the cockpit, point it at the nearest enemy, and say go. One has to assume that in the original canon that there was a reason that they didn't simply pull this trick anytime they wanted to destroy, a Death Star, or a world-destroying planet, or an entire enemy fleet. The usual assumption, you know, the usual plot duct tape they use is the idea that something going in to hyperspace does not, does not interact with the material physical world, and it also, anything going into hyperspace leaves hyperspace at the same velocity it entered. So it's not, you're not going to get, free light speed. Of course, in my own comics, Quentin Quinn Space Ranger, they exploit that. In the most recent arc where I dropped it off, an entire enemy fleet is taken out by basically what is called God's shotgun. It's basically a space station that uses warp drives to whip projectiles up to near light speed, shoot them through a warp vortex so that they pop out near the target, and it sprays them with relativistic velocity shrapnel. And any civilization capable of reaching light speed is capable of destroying entire planets with a push of a button. It's basic physics. I have never participated in NaNoWriMo. I have no interest in it. Because I disappoint myself already, and I disappoint myself on a regular basis already. I don't need any help. as always, I basically concluded, the probability bomb. I don't know. The probability bomb was a crowdsource funded thing. I grossly over. It was what, 3 years ago now, and it is progressing at a snail's pace when it progresses at all. And when I finally get it done, I'm still going to have to try and scrape together money just to do the print run. It is going to become a money sink. Yeah. It was too long ago. I thought I would be. I honestly, sincerely believe that I would be able to complete the project within a year. I better not look at any more ideas for new stories, Antherzil. I mean, I've already got too much on my plate as it is. Things that I need to be doing. As to that, I think I'm thinking that the probability bomb, too many things wrong with it. Too many things wrong with it. It's going to progress until either I finish it or I manage to set aside enough money to reimburse those who funded it. Right now, I'm currently I've got more immediate worries though right now. So I need to be focusing on the more immediate thing. I've got current commissions and stuff that need to be done, need to be sent out, so that I can take in more commissions, so that I can pay the bills. And yeah, so it's all about order of priorities. That's the, you're right, Antherzil. But right now, I think I spend most of my life on the horns of a dilemma. On the horns of a dilemma implies there was only two. So, well, I'm sitting here flapping my yap. Might as well be working on one of those commissions. Let me get my pen. Let me get my marker. Let's see. And we open up. Turn that off. And we turn that on. Grind, 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 grind. I'm trying to turn on my Manga Studio and it's just sitting here going, what? What? You want me to do what? Oh, you want me to turn on? I really don't. I really shouldn't be dwelling on this too much because if I start dwelling on things, I start getting depressed and just maudlin. You know, just not a way to be. Just really not. Mess you up, make you ill. Okay. Got a couple of strips for the old Victorian that have been waiting. Why is this taking so long? Why is it so hard to do? Why are you having so much trouble doing this? I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I wish I could put in words. Oh, do you hear that music in the background? La 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 la. Think about this. Think about this. Some guy worked his heart out to make that song, to make that music. You know, orchestral music, composition, all those instruments and everything. And what does it amount to? What does it amount to? An auditory cliche. It's like dun 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 dun. Might as well be. It's lost its significance. It's lost it. It's almost impossible to listen to without being reminded of about 10,000 breakfast cereal commercials. Think about that. Some poor guy in the hereafter going, "That's my legacy." You know, fruity Odie Crunch. Now, what was the name of the guy? What was the name of the guy? Let me look up something. There was a composer. What was his name? The guy that wrote all the classic music for the Warner Brothers cartoons. You know, the Looney Tunes. Milt Franklin. No, not Milt Franklin. Not Milt Franklin. Raymond Scott, I believe. Let's see here. Let's see. Raymond Scott. Now, Raymond Scott. Uh, Raymond Scott. He was a composer back when the Warner Brothers silly, Muppet Show, not Muppet Show, Looney Tunes came out. And the funny thing is, his compositions. They've become associated with Looney Tunes irrevocably. And the hilarious thing is that Raymond Scott hated cartoons. He considered them pop culture trash. He would have been absolutely furious to learn that his music has been permanently, embedded in the dun 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 dun. That is his, and you can't listen to Raymond Scott without seeing Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck running around on screen in the back of your head. I don't know if he would just been furious or it would have broke him. What can you do? Anyway, and thanks to the Smurfs, there are entire swaths of classical music I can't listen to. Smurf berry crunch is fun to eat, a Smurfy fruity breakfast treat. Speaking of which, can you hear the music? Was that the? Do you suppose that they never saw that coming? The composers who made these epic, beautiful works, they never expected to become a commercial jingle. They never expected to become an audible cliche. Once I get going, it's usually not too bad. But it takes forever to get going in the first place. And I don't know. Some days I just want to scream at myself. I don't know how Charles Schultz did it. I really don't. I think his career was something like 70 years. Somewhere between 50 to 70 years. Day after day after day after day. Just, bang, 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 bang. I got those strips out. Of course, he did cheat a little. Oh yeah, he cheated a little. Think about it. Think about how many comic strips of Charlie Brown were of Linus and Charlie Brown sitting behind that wall, just resting their arms, just their four. All you saw was their arms and their head, and that was it. That's all he had to draw: brick wall, 4 arms, 2 heads. The jokes, how many years of that, Even when I was a kid, I noticed that they had a particular pattern. Missed test marker, Linus's crush on his teacher, jokes about the blanket that he carried around, and Charlie Brown, Snoopy fighting with a cat next door. Just certain cliches he did over and over and over and over and over again, but he still managed to make them at least a little unique each time. He was on those comic book pages he was on the comic pages, the dailies, long enough to have grown up and become a grandfather himself. Charlie Brown, that is. Oh, mercy. I considered it a grand achievement to break 1,000 strips. And, 1,000 nip and tuck strips. Great, just amazing, as far as I was concerned. And that was over decades. It took me decades to get that far. Of course, if you add it up, I have about 2,000 or 3,000 strips. I'm ballparking, between all the comic strips I've done, I've got about maybe 2,000 strips. Maybe a little over that. 2,000, maybe 2,500. I could sit down and count them, but I'm not going to. And that's over a 18-year period. Let's just say, for general purposes, I started I started doing comic strips online a couple of years before year 2000. So, but let's say 2000 is when I officially started doing it. So 18 years. 18 years. If Nip and Tuck is my baby, he should have been in college already. Actually, I started drawing Nip and Tuck strips years before that. Just when I was like a 12-year-old kid, drawing absolutely awful comic, drawing just terrible stuff. But I was basically back then. I was just basically ripping off Pogo Possum and all the other hillbilly cartoon character comic strips. Did I ever tell you that when I was a boy, I thought that Little House on the Prairie was contemporary. I thought there were actually people out there living that that went around today dressed like that and working like that and riding horses, with wagons and everything. I thought it was modern times. I seriously did. Not where I lived, obviously, but somewhere. I'm not even sure when it is I figured out that it was the other, that it wasn't the case that Little House on the Prairie was set over 100 years ago. I'm not even sure when I figured that out. It's a good thing I didn't live near the Amish. I would have been really confused. What are you doing in my barn? Something about that show, remembering it brings back a little bit of heartache. I don't know. I was trying not to think of this. An old friend of mine, I guess you call him an acquaintance, but he was my, he was a friend. We only stayed in touch on the internet, but Ed Miller. Ed Miller. He was one of my roommates in the 1 year I went to college. 1 year, and latest news, he's not doing well. He's hospitalized, and basically his wife is posting for him, keeping people updated on his medical. They don't say let's put it this way. They say it isn't going to be long. His kidneys have given out, and several of his internal organs have given out, and he's on oxygen. And just the whole 9 yards. He spent the last few years as he was a craftsman. He's a craftsman. He makes musical instruments by hand. Guitars, dulcimers. He was even doing that when I was in college. Back in college, he had a few of them floating around the dorm room. Ones that he had made. And among other things, he is also a clown. you know, did birthday parties and stuff, did things for his local church. Didn't really stay close in touch with him, you know. But now he's. I'm not exactly sure what all has happened. It's just his body's just gave out, and now he's. Uh, Yeah, they're looking like he's going to be, you know, next he's on oxygen, and it looks like they're going to be putting him on dialysis, and it's just. I haven't contacted him or his wife. We're not close. Just, you know, kept in touch through Facebook. Didn't really have much to say, and don't want to intrude on them. Not right now. No. It just. Those three guys, they I was a freshman idiot with -5 in social skills. Didn't you know, just didn't know how to behave properly. I just didn't, and but they tolerated me, and they made me feel welcome, and they, you know, they you know, they were my friends, and now one of them's just about to reach the end of his time. You know, Ed's the only one that, you know, that I even have that much contact with. I don't know what happened to the other two. Don't know where they are or what they're doing. And you know, I really don't think I'd want them to see me in the state I'm in these days. I haven't really got any, you know, just, you know. Don't really know what to think or feel. I think I spend a way. I think I spend a lot of my time trying to forget that I'm my circumstances and my physical condition and everything else. trying to forget that I'm old. Trying to forget for a little while that I'm housebound and messed up physically and messed up, just just try and forget. That's selfish of me, I think. But seeing a guy like a guy like Ed end up that way in a hospital with people having to feed him through a tube. Spend your whole life working, your whole life doing like Ed, doing just making something of your life, and only to and all the effort you put into it, you end up like that. He did good with his life. He did better with his life 1,000 times over than I did with mine. Now here he is. I just don't know. There's no place for platitudes. There's no time for platitudes. I've never heard of platitudes. You know, people say things. Oh well, you know, when you're grieving or when things are in trouble, and they'll say things like, you know, oh, it will all make sense in the end, or you know, someday it will all make sense, or you know, it's all part of God's grand design, or well, shoot, you know, just about anything people say. Just, I've never heard anything that was, you know, just. But wasn't in the end just terrible. I don't know what it is people want. I don't know what it is I want, or what any person wants at a time like that when they talk about something like that. You don't want them to tell you. Don't want them to tell you, you know, buck up. The sun will come out tomorrow, and you know the world's a wonderful place, and etc., etc., etc. Because that just makes you want to punch them. You don't want them commiserating with you because that just sounds fake. You don't want them giving you moralistic platitudes because you're a person, damn it, not a sermon illustration. I read once that Italians, they get together. There's a guy who's writing. I don't know if it was a work of fiction or just a parody, or whether it was. Well, anyway, it's a story of an Italian immigrant. Came to America, and they've been, you know, after several years of bopping around the country, he got together for a family reunion. And they all sat down together, and they had a guest there who wasn't a member of the family, who wasn't Italian, wasn't a member of the family, and they all got down together and they started crying. They just, you know, all of a sudden one of them started crying, and then everybody at the table just started weeping. And and this poor guy, he's just like, what's wrong? What's wrong? But is there something wrong? And he says, no, 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 there's nothing wrong. It's just we're together. So you don't need a reason to. You don't need a reason to cry. It's just the emotion of finally being all back together, and they all broke down in tears over it. And it's apparently allegedly a very Italian thing to do. Pain. Think when your heart is troubled, you want another heart to be troubled alongside yours. Not sure what to think of it. Not sure what to say about it. Okay. Well, goodness. You should have been in bed a long time ago, well, Archangel. I should have been in bed a long time ago, but I can sleep in. But you take care of yourself now. Okay. I think I'm going to be calling it a night myself, at least for this. You all take care of yourselves out there. You hear? Things can change in the blink of an eye. Care for each other. Care for yourself. Take care of one another. Stay close to Jesus. There's no closer friend you can have. Good night, y'all.